Hello, I'm David Baddiel, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
We're in Aldershot. I should explain to anyone who's obviously wondering where we are. That'd be the first thing they're thinking is, are they in Aldershot? And yeah, we are. We're backstage at my show in Aldershot.
Well, we're backstage at my show, technically, at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, technically, just right now it's your show.
Yeah.
And later time, 7:30, because now it's about 5:20. It will be my show. So yeah, we're in a kind of strange abstract space, both yours and mine. But it's quite nice, isn't it? Because I've only just turned up.
Yeah.
I should explain. I just arrived, walked from Aldershot Station, which is quite grim. The walk, I don't know if you've done it, sorry people from Aldershot, but the walk, I'm sorry, it might be lovely elsewhere, but the walk from Aldershot Station to Princess Hall is terrible, rough.
You know, I've ran from the recommended car park past 3 empty car parks that are quite close.
Yeah, it's mainly just car parks, I think, yeah, and running is a very good idea.
It's not.
Oh, isn't it?
No, I'm not very composed at the moment at all.
I don't know, well, it might not be a good idea for you in terms of your composure, but it's a good idea in terms of your safety.
That is true.
In Aldershot.
And yeah. Absolutely. So, you are, of course, a writer and comedian, but when did you first start, working on sketch comedy and things like that? Was it at university?
Just before university, really. I did my school used to have a review, like a lunchtime show that at the end of the year was put on by the kids in the sixth form, the teenagers, the oldest kids, and it was always shit, without fail. Every year it was terrible, and got no laughs. Sometimes got booed off, but everyone just sort of like accepted. Oh yeah, there's some rubbish songs going on over there, and then I wrote it one year. I don't even know how I got the gig because I hadn't done anything in comedy at that point. But there was some other bloke who I knew who said, "Do you want to write it with me?" And I said, "Yeah, all right." And we changed it from what it normally was, which was just, as I say, some songs happening over there, to sketches virulently unpleasant about specific teachers that we didn't like, and that stormed it. I mean, the only one I can actually remember now is there was a very Christian librarian with a beard, very stern, very Christian, and we had him fucking a blow-up doll on the photocopier. And I still think of it as amongst the biggest laughs I've ever got, standing around pointing at him during that sketch. I wasn't actually the man with the beard myself, but I was in the sketch. Yeah. And it went really well. There was only one performance of it because it got taken off immediately by the school. They didn't, for some reason, go for it, the teachers themselves. They didn't take the idea of satire. Much like now, actually, you may know at the moment, I wasn't in fact at all involved in it, but there was a sketch on the Tracy Ullman show taking the piss out of Jeremy Corbyn, which I had nothing to do with, but some fans of Corbyn thought I did because they think that I am presently public enemy #1 of Jeremy Corbyn's because I criticised him, not him really. Yeah, I was on that Frankie Boyle talking about him and anti-Semitism, and so hilariously, some bloke said, "Oh, I see." The Tracy Ullman show, which had one sketch with Corbyn in, was written by Baddiel, which it wasn't. And then next thing I'm getting attacked. But it's quite similar in the way. The same sense of humour failure was applicable to my teachers at the school, where they really thought, no, we don't like this. So they took the show off. It's never been on again. Wow. I shut that show down forever. Yeah, it's good. And
you were a co-creator with The Simpsons, and the Tracy Ullman show's doing fantastically.
You see, I've said that. I've said, look, you're going to accuse me of writing for Tracy Ullman, accuse me of writing this bit with this yellow cartoon in it in 1988, because that's worth my while. But anyway, that was my first experience of writing comedy, and it was actually in a way what sold me on it, because I wasn't very cool at school. I was nerdy, and I had some friends, but I was hardly the cool kid. I wasn't the Fonz at school. But for about a week, I sort of was the Fonz. I was like, oh, he's this guy who nearly got expelled for writing funny stuff, and that's cool. And so I thought I'd better do this for a living. And then I went to university, and I had no idea how to be a comedian then. And it was just before alternative comedy was really like a proper. Wasn't real. I mean, I went to university in 1983, so the comic strip and the young ones had happened, but I still didn't really understand that probably the best thing to do, which is what I eventually did do, is go on the London cabaret circuit. But I knew about Python, and I knew about Peter Cook. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore were sort of my heroes because they'd done Derek and Clive, and that was my absolute total filled my comic sky. So I went there because I wanted to be in Footlights, which I was, and that was good. It helped me to learn about comedy. But when I came out of university in 1986, it was like not a good place to have been, because by then alternative comedy was everything, and I realised saying I was vice president of Cambridge Footlights was useless. 4 years before, that got you straight, that give you a series on BBC Two. Now it's like, no, fuck off, go and do the Comedy Store, which is actually a better thing. So I did that instead for 5 years before I was then back on radio and TV.
Absolutely. And then I think you made an appearance in Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, the TV show.
Did you research, or did you actually know that?
I've got the DVD.
You've got the DVD of Filthy Rich and Cat Flap?
Yeah. So I've got the young ones and Filthy Rich and Cat Flap bottom, and the live shows.
I'm very impressed with that. Well, yeah, what happened with that was I'd just done the Cambridge Footlights show, the summer show that I did in my last year at Cambridge, and a bloke called Ed Bye tried to cast me rather brilliantly in Red Dwarf.
Oh wow!
He liked me and thought I should be in Red Dwarf, and then in the end I didn't get that job. Craig Charles got it instead.
Oh, so you're going as Lister?
Yeah, it was Lister. That's right. I don't really know much about Red Dwarf, but yeah, I think so.
Got some episodes on that as well.
Yeah. So, and I didn't get that job, but then he said, "Oh, do you want to do this other thing?" And I was very excited about that. But that went, which was Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. I was very excited because he said it's the follow-up to the Young Ones, which I was obsessed with. But then it all went wrong. Well, not terribly wrong, but do you want me to tell the story? Okay, I'll tell the story. So I'm just a student. I'm doing a show at the Bloomsbury Theatre with people who were in my university or whatever. And I get this gig, which is a tiny part by then in Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. I'm bidding for Adrian Edmondson's Burp in an art gallery. So that it's gone down from like a major part in a whole show, Red Dwarf, to this 2 lines, right? So that's quite a pisser, but no, it doesn't matter. I'm still excited, and I'm living at my mum and dad's house still. I'm only like 21. I'm still living at my mum and dad's house, and I don't have any money at all. And they say, right, we'll send the tickets for you to come to Manchester, where we're filming it, in a taxi. Get in that taxi, get a plane to Manchester. Another taxi will take you to where we're filming. It was an art gallery in Manchester. So there's no email now or whatever. So I just get this message from a producer. I say, all right then. I wake up really early, terrified and nervous. Taxi doesn't turn up. Just doesn't turn. I don't know what went wrong, but it didn't turn up. So about 2 hours later, I managed finally to get through to where they're filming, and a janitor says to me, "I don't know anything about it, but you should get on a plane to Manchester if it's this important." So I just basically borrowed 200 quid from my parents and went to Heathrow Airport and flew myself there. And got there. By the time I got there, it's 3 hours late. They're all furious with me. It's not my fault. They're furious. Rick Mail, Ben Elton, who I absolutely idolise, they're furious with me. I had to have lunch with them. They're just sort of looking at me like, who is this twat who's held up the film? I do the bit. That bit goes all right. And then I can remember, and I just told him this the other day. I bumped into him. Paul Jackson was the producer and director of that. And I remember leaving to go home again, tapping him on the shoulder and saying, "Paul, can I get the money back for bringing me up here? Because I've got to pay my parents back, and I can't afford it." And he just said, go away, I'm trying to do the next scene." And I never got the money back for it. I know, it's awful. It was outrageous, but
you've been immortalised forever in that TV show.
I have, yeah. It's still a high point of my career. Go and see it. It's online
up until today.
Until the Sarah O'Connell show. But it is online. And it does still look like me in a kind of younger way. That's the word I would use.
Well, more grainy because it was in the past and it wasn't in high fidelity.
You can't tell when you look at me doing it that I've had a very traumatic experience getting there. So that's great acting.
It's always very good. Yeah. It's like this now.
That's what acting's all about.
I know, exactly.
Don't make it look like you've had a horrible time getting there. Like, for example, tonight when I do the show, I'm not going to make it look like the walk here was a bit rough and I was a bit frightened and there were too many car parks. I'm not going to. That won't come. No one will know that.
I mean, as long as you stand at a certain angle, they won't see that your shirt is completely shredded and the scratches all down you.
Well, I think that's very normal in Aldershot anyway. Yeah.
So, then you went to work on the Mary Whitehouse experience.
Literally, I mean, I came out of Cambridge and I did stand up on the circuit for 4 or 5 years, and I was writing radio comedy at the same time. A show called Weekending that was on then. That was like a show where anyone could rock up and just submit sketches about the week's news. And that's where I sort of met Rob Newman, although he was at Cambridge as well. But I met him again there, and we started working together there. And then we did Mary Whitehouse experience on Radio 1 with Putnam Dennis, and also Joe Brand and Jack Dee and Mark Thomas and all sorts of people were in that show, sort of guesting on it. And it was produced by at one point Amanda Iannucci and all sorts of people that worked on it. But then it went from there to TV.
So that you started doing touring. You were doing sort of like arena tours as well, weren't you?
No, we never did an arena tour. There's a notion that we did an arena tour. We did one arena show, which was like no one had done before. So we were doing big venues. We were doing venues I've done on this tour, like Leicester, the Montfort Hall, which is like 3,000 seats. And then I remember the year before we did Wembley, we'd done Hammersmith Odeon, as it was then, like 9 times. We'd sold it out like 9 times. And that was really exciting and brilliant. But then someone said, rather than doing Hampstead Odeon 9 times, why don't you do Wembley Arena once? I mean, that's not, those maths don't quite add up, but you know what I mean. Why don't you do a bigger venue once or whatever? And at the time, I was very unkeen. But Rob was very keen, and John Thode, our manager, was very keen, and we did it, and it was an amazing experience. I don't think, having done it, that arenas are the right space for comedy. And I know loads of people do them now, and it's better now because, you know, people just like acoustically and with screens and all the rest of it, it's better than we did it. And we had script, but everything is, you know, I've seen arena comedy and it's been good now, but I still think comedy is best suited to a like 1,200, 1,300 seater venue, I think.
Absolutely.
Especially if you can't fill an arena anymore, I find.
That's very true. So in 1994, you started collaborating with Frank Skinner, who I believe lived with you for a while as well.
Quite more than a while.
6 years.
6 years. I mean, and
Research.
You've probably researched this as well, but I'll say it again now because I think it can't be said often enough. I took Frank in as a lodger. He had virtually no money. He'd come down to London, given up his job. He had he was teaching, I think. He was married. He got divorced, stopped teaching, so he had no money, no proper job, whatever, no proper home. And he'd come down to London and lived with his girlfriend at the time. She'd kicked him out, and he had nowhere to go. He was virtually homeless. And I thought, he seems like a nice bloke. I'll give him a room in my flat, because my brother, who I lived with, had gone off somewhere. So he lived in my flat, and then I moved to another flat, and at the time the rent, and this is the point I want to make, was 40 quid a week. I said to Frank, look, I'll have to charge you 40 quid a week. That seems not bad to me, don't you think? You know, North London, you know, Kilburn at first, but then we moved to Hampstead, it's still 40 quid a week. Then we start doing fantasy football together, and he's earning a packet, you know, and he's doing really well, and he's Frank Skinner. I never put the rent up. I never said, now hold on a minute, you know when I set this rent you weren't famous, now you are, I think it should change. I never said that in 6 years. I think that makes me the good guy.
Oh yeah, so
I could claim it now.
You can.
I mean, he still lives only 10 doors down from me.
Well, you know, if you ever claim back this filthy rich and cat flap money plus the Frank Skinner money, you can at least get a crazy expensive sandwich one day. You know, treat yourself.
Yeah, I might do that.
Gonna go for the premium Tesco experience today.
I might actually get that the best, what is it, Tesco? Tesco best something.
Yeah.
It's not, is it premium?
No.
No, it's got the word best in it.
Something.
Yeah.
Does the audience know?
Yes. People are saying we know what it is, and it's quite embarrassing.
I used to work there, and I can't remember.
What did you do in Tesco?
I was a customer service supervisor and a team leader. I can still do the staff announcements.
Mountaineering and stuff. To me.
Well, no. So I basically used to organise people to go on the checkouts and things, and then apologise profusely at people when they'd bought 4 pints of milk, drunk 3.5 of them, and then said it tastes weird. And they had also had, it was out on the counter all day at a barbecue, and I'd go, oh, sorry, I have to give you £1 million voucher or something. Yeah, okay. Basically every day. Right. People trying it.
Well, you should know then, I can't remember what it is now, because I always think about this when I'm in supermarkets. They all have a range now, which is called something like premium, or best ever, or, you know, fucking great, or something like that. And then you think, like, well, is everything else shite? Is that what you're saying to us with this range? There we go. I don't think that ever happened when you were working at Tesco. They were asking you that.
They were just marginally disappointed all the time.
This basics thing is shite, and you say, yeah, of course it is. You should be buying the best ever range.
Well, the Valley stuff normally tasted quite good because it was just basically fat and sugar.
Yeah, well, that is good.
Can't go wrong.
That is good, and it may just be in the packaging.
Yeah.
You know, because often the photos on like the nice stuff, they look very nice, don't they?
They do.
They work that out. Like, we'll put this nice photo on the premium range, but actually, I do this quite a lot. I mean, I can't believe we're talking about this, but since you were, this
is all planned.
Sometimes, when I'm in a supermarket and I look at one of those like premium ranges or whatever, I wish we could remember what the Tesco way.
I'm still trying to, yeah.
Something. The trouble is, I've got best before in my head because that's often on there as well. Yeah, but it's not.
Tesco used by now.
No, it's Tesco. It's not best ever. That'd be rubbish. Oh, anyway, whatever it is. Shall we Google it?
We should. I think we should.
But what I often do is I look at the lovely photo of the, you know, slow cooked lamb shanks or whatever special premium range, and I think, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to slide this off this photo and see what it actually looks like, and it always looks terrible compared to that. It looks, in fact, like the value range. So there's a small lesson to be learned there about life.
It's true.
Tesco best. If I put that in,
now we're going to find out.
Okay, well, we might find out. We might find out something else. Finest.
Finest.
That's it.
Of course it is.
What kind of thesauruses are we that we couldn't think
There's
of
been
that?
people screaming finest at the camera for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So anyway, if you do that with Tesco Finest, you sometimes find that the picture on the front doesn't quite match what's in the packaging.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's got a horse in it.
I can't comment on that because I might get sued by Tesco. You can get sued by Tesco.
No, it's a serving suggestion.
Be served on a horse. Yeah. Lovely. Poldark does that all the time.
Delicious.
Yeah.
You started collaborating with Frank Skinner. Largely, it seems because he owes you.
Collaborating with the Nazis.
No, Frank Skinner.
Just the word collaboration brings it out in me. No, I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you occupied a sofa together.
You said occupied, yeah.
It's all going wrong.
We did.
So you're working together because he owed you a large amount of rent, essentially.
That was why I insisted that he use his talents to enhance my career, yeah.
That's right. And then, so can you tell me how the song Three Lines came about with the lightning seeds? Yes. Were you...
told lots of people before, but I can tell you...
You've never told me, unless I've forgotten.
I've never told you. Yeah. No, that's true.
So this has come up before?
It's come up before in interviews, but not the stuff about Tesco Finest.
Not what I'm about to say next, right?
You're already one ahead.
This is just introduction.
Okay, so there's something amazing on the way. So I'll do the mundane stuff, which is Ian Brodie of the Lightning Seeds. They're not actually you may not know this. They're not the Lightning Seeds. They're just called Lightning Seeds. You did know that.
No.
Okay.
So the Lightning Seeds is still free for someone else to become.
Anymore, yeah. Although if I was Ian, I might say that's a bit. Don't call yourself. I mean, I know we didn't call ourselves the Lightning. It's not completely free.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good point.
But if you're in a different area, like you're selling seeds.
Yeah. Or actually, what we've proved is that Best is free for a supermarket.
It's very true.
Yeah. So you'd have thought someone by now, Morrison's might think we'll just call it Best. Yeah. Morrison's Best. Anyway, he said. I've been asked to do the Euro 96 song. He didn't say it like that. That sounds very like he was a bit pissed off about it. He was very happy about it. And I'd never met him, but he had been asked to do that, the England song. And there was a tradition, now stopped, partly our fault, I think, of always England had a song at a tournament. Yeah. And then he called up me and Frank and said, I think you should write the lyrics, because at the time fantasy football was on, and he said, you seem to me to be the nation's football fans. So we said, yeah, all right. And then rather cheekily we said, and we want to sing on it too, particularly cheekily in my case because I can't sing, but we wanted to. And he said, yes. That's really kind of amazing now when you think about it, because he's a pop star. I mean, that is not something that I think Elvis would have said yes to. If Elvis had said, can you write the lyrics to this song to...
He would have said,
He would have said that. No, that was yes. That translates as yes. So I think he would have said, Well, I'm shaking my head, meaning no.
He would have shaken his hips.
Yeah, well, and his head. I mean, because his hips don't translate as no.
And his hips don't lie.
Yeah, no,
that's Shakira.
Yeah, that is also true. But either way, I think most pop stars with their egos would have said, no, I'm singing this, I'm the fucking singer. But he didn't, he said, no, we're fine. And so we did, and that was how it came about.
And of course, it was #1 3 times, and it was everyone sang it at Wembley once, right?
More than once. Actually, I'm glad you've allowed me to correct this. You don't know what I'm going to say yet. Which is, I did Desert Island Disc the other day. This is a more prestigious interview, but I did do Desert Island Disc the other day. And Kirsty Young, I think because she's Scottish, said about 3 times, yes, of course, the 3 lines that were sung against Scotland, England versus Scotland. And I forgot to say to her, yeah, not just England versus Scotland, England versus Holland, England versus Spain, England versus the whole tournament. But she was banging on about Scotland. But yes, it was sung a number of times. In fact, until from when it first was sung, which was England versus Scotland, to when England went out of the tournament, which was England versus Germany. At that point, the Germans started singing it, quite annoyingly.
Well, it's a good song.
It's a good song, but it's quite annoying to hear your song just immediately taken up by the people who've knocked you out of the tournament. And the Germans had no compunction about it. They were in a very German way. I mean, this is probably going to sound quite xenophobic and whatever. It's not meant to. I think it's quite refreshing in a way that the Germans sort of in a very German way thought, well, we have won the tournament, we will have the song.
Yeah.
And that was an accent, a German accent. I am half German though, so I can do that.
That counts.
Yeah. Although you see, I'm only half German because my mother was Jewish and her family was Jewish, and they were of course chased out of Germany by the Nazis. That's the second time I've mentioned them. So I don't own that half Germanness as much as perhaps I could.
You're born in New York, weren't you? But only lived there for about 4 months.
That's correct. I was born in New York, lived there for about 4 months. Very good. But my mum was born in Nazi Germany and lived there for about 4 months. Luckily for her.
Yeah.
Had she lived there any longer, she'd be dead. And
it's an incredible story.
This interview would not be happening.
No, absolutely not. But over the years, have you ever considered or ever been asked to do an anthem for another sport? So, for example, bowling or table tennis, you could do 2 paddles, or golf would be 3 irons.
Yeah, well, when you see the show, my show, you'll see I can't do one about golf because most of the show is about golf. That might surprise you because people think it's about my dad's dementia, but it's really, when I say it's about golf, it's about my mother's affair with a golfing memorabilia salesman. That's really what the show is about. It's amazing how many people have spoken up to me today. In fact, Paul Putner, you may know Paul Putner. Do you know him? He's a very fine actor. Was on Stuart Lee's show. He said to me, "Oh, I must come see your show. I so loved your film you did about your dad," which is something I did on Channel 4. And I did do a film about my dad and his dementia, and that's confused people because now people think this whole show is about my dad and his dementia. It's mainly about my mum's very public affair that she had with a golfing memorabilia salesman. Anyway, I am thus a bit traumatised about golf, so I don't think I could do one about golf. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. I won't hold it against you.
Okay, but I've never been asked to do a different sport. I think there are versions of different sports. There's certainly quite famously, I say famously, I wrote an article about it because it was funny, there was a UKIP version of it. Now I know UKIP's not a sport, but politics is sort of a sport. There was a UKIP version by a woman called Mandy Boylett, which included the line about the EU, they've taken all our money and fish through the years. I think it's brilliant.
It's very good.
And who knows, probably true. Yeah.
Can I just say also, while UKIP isn't a sport, there is a lot of race stuff.
Yeah, that's true. They're very hot on race, aren't they, as a thing? Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is like the word race, which is a sport.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. There is that correlation. I mean, lacrosse, there could be.
Very lacrosse, yeah.
I've never been asked, though. And to be honest, one thing about me and sport, which people don't quite understand, I think people think I like sport. I don't like sport. I like football. I like football. All other sports are a long way behind. I watch Wimbledon. That's about it. I'm not very bothered about sport, just football. So no good. I'm sorry. I would just not be able to write. You know, I don't know who the people are in table. Desmond Douglas. In table tennis, like to match up to like Gary Lineker and Bobby Moore.
The only one I know is Forrest Gump, and I'm not sure if that really happened.
Yeah, I think table tennis?
In the film, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Forrest Gump.
Oh, you should. You'll get this reference.
Yeah. Okay, well, when I watch it in maybe 8 or 9 months' time, I'll call you up. So I'll laugh about that. Oh, that's funny.
It's got a delayed reaction.
That table tennis gag is fantastic.
Got a comedy timer on it.
Yeah. I thought he plays American football. That's the only clip I know.
He goes through all of history.
Oh, well, that's not good, you see. But then it's not focused on one particular sport.
He didn't need to.
Okay. Yeah, never for the song. If I'm going to write a song about Forrest Gump's sporting achievements.
He's running home. Forrest is running home.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to stop there because I can't.
We should.
I can't follow this down the comments.
I don't.
I've not seen Forrest Gump, and I don't know about table tennis.
And I don't know what I'm about to say either, which is horrific. Speaking of which, actually, this ties in very nicely. You also worked on over 60 episodes of Unplanned with Frank Skinner.
That's right. Yeah. If we'd called it unscripted, that would have been an interesting thing because it would be a sense that there is a script somewhere along the line, but we just don't do it. But it wasn't that. No, it was completely ad-libbed, improvised chat show. Chat show wasn't even a chat show. It was just me and him talking on a sofa and then asking the audience for questions. That was really it. But there's clips from that in my show because my mum was on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was the secretary. We used to do this thing of getting someone out of the audience to be the secretary who would write down what we talked about. And my mum was that 1 week, much against Frank's wishes. Because not because he hated my mum, but he thought she'll be embarrassing and awful and blah, blah, blah. And she was. And that's what made that show great.
So do you enjoy the sort of improvised format of that show? Would you like to do more things like that?
I'd like to do that. That is the show. People ask me every day, not every day, but nearly every day. Someone on Twitter says to me, when's fantasy football coming back? Sometimes older people say, when's the Mary White's Experience coming back, which is really quite unlikely. But the show that I'd like to do probably is Unplanned, is Baddiel and Skinner Unplanned. Partly because it is a fun show and it's good, but mainly it's no work. Because literally you just turn up and do it, and absolutely. That's it. Brilliant. Yeah, it's a bit like this.
It's a bit like this.
Yes. I might do this. I mean, if
we could just do this.
If people ask,
you're getting this every day, mostly from me. But
yeah, I mean, I'd prefer to get paid for it.
Yeah. So would I actually. What the hell? I haven't really thought this through.
No, that's your only sticking point. I did get paid, incredibly, some would say, for Baddiel and Skinner Unplanned. I don't think you're paying me for this.
Try.
I could try.
No, I could try. There's a bowl of fruit over there.
Okay, that's not your bowl of fruit, though, is it? I don't think that's not a Sarah Connell Productions bowl of fruit, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. I'm just going to say it is.
All right. Okay. Well, if you can provide enough fruit, then I'll do this.
Deal. So, in addition to doing lots of TV, you have also been a brilliant writer since 1996. You've published lots of adult books and now kids' books as well.
Yeah, I'm going to plug something because I didn't think. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think this was going to be as good as it was. Because there's a children's theatre company called Story Pocket Theatre who have optioned my third children's book, which is called Annie Malcolm, which is about a boy who turns into lots of different animals. And I'll be honest with you, they told me they were going to do it, and they seemed like nice people. I said, yeah, okay, go and do it. And then they wrote to me the other day and said, can you come and see? We're doing our first run through in a church in Kennington. Yeah. This was today. And I thought, oh, you know what, I should go and have a look at this because I believe it's actually my book they're doing and I should have some idea of what they're doing. But I'd really not paid it any attention. Anyway, it was absolutely brilliant. And most importantly, I was weeping at the end of it. Wow. I was absolutely in pieces. I mean, not because it was shit, because it was actually very moving. And I thought, oh, I seem to have written a sort of very moving, poignant, funny fairy tale. Or at least they brought that out of it. It's lovely, really lovely. So yeah, so I do that as well as comedy, writing kids' books. Or they are, for me, mostly. I don't see them as that different. Yeah, because they are funny.
Well, yeah, you've with the kids' books. Did you start sort of thinking about doing them once you sort of had to start having kids and things, or was it something you always planned to do?
No, I never always planned to do it. I don't plan to do anything. I only work with the ideas that I have. I mean, I wanted to be a comedian, but even then, I'll only write something or do something where I think, like, oh, I've had an idea. I don't think, oh, my career would suit children's books, so I'll write children's books. No, what happened was Ezra, my son, said to me one day when he was about 8, he said, Dad, why doesn't Harry Potter run away from the Dursleys and try and find some better parents? And I said, I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. Do you want to know why?
I do want to know.
Okay. It's a writing thing. The reason Harry Potter doesn't run away from the Dursleys is J.K. Rowling wants to make Harry Potter's life away from Hogwarts as sort of shit and mundane and unmagical as she possibly can, so that when he's at Hogwarts it's really brilliant compared to the Dursleys. So that's the technical reason why. But beyond that, the point is, Ezra said, why doesn't he run away from the Dursleys and try and find some better parents? And I said, whatever. I didn't say what I just said to you. I think I said I don't know because I couldn't be bothered to explain that to my son. But that's given me an idea of a world in which children can choose their own parents. And then I thought, well, that's obviously a kid's book. Now, I hadn't written a kid's book before, but that doesn't bother me. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, if I've got the idea, I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, I'll write a kid's book, because how hard can it be if you're a writer and a storyteller? And so I wrote that as a parent agency, which I'm writing the film of now. And which is going well, the film, and I think it's going to be made next year. And I've written 5 more.
Which ties me very nicely onto the Infidel, which came out in 2010, which you wrote. What was the experience like? And I was going to ask, is that something you'd like to do again? And obviously you are.
Well, I'm writing the parent agency. I would definitely like to write more films. I really enjoyed I really enjoyed writing the film. The experience of making the film was tough because it was a low budget film. Low budget films are really hard to make. There was an awful lot of like, oh fuck, are we actually going to be able to make this? You know, and Josh, the director, who I really love actually, he's a really extraordinary, talented bloke. But I think it was difficult for him because it was just like, you know, it's actually the Infidel. You know, it's a complicated movie in some ways because it's about Muslims and Jews, although it's really just a big old farcical romp. But it had, you know, when you look at it now, I kind of think, like, do these movies get made anymore, these proper low-budget British comedies? And it was probably the last kind of time when they were still being made. And I just remember it being made by the skin of its teeth, is what I'm saying. But it was great, and I really enjoyed it. And actually, I'm really proud of the movie. I actually, not prouder, but I think there were things wrong with the movie, particularly the ending. I fucked up the ending. And then I rewrote the story for a musical, which I wrote with Erin Baron-Cohen, which is on at Stratford Theatre Royal in 2014. And I think we're going to mount it again somewhere in London next year. Wow. And I fixed the story for that, which I was always very pleased about.
That's amazing.
It's better in the musical.
There was a series that came out in, I think, 2015, 2016-ish, where you went to China and travelled down the Silk Road for the Discovery Channel. I loved that show. It's really good.
I love doing it. I really like doing that. I mean, it's one of the things about, you know, still knocking about on television. Actually, I remember Victoria Wood saying that when she did a travel show that she's over 40, she's a comedian, so she's not allowed to do funny shows anymore. She has to do a travel program, which is true. They do tend to sort of, you know, it's slightly like, oh, let's put the geriatric comedians into the travel documentaries, but they're brilliant to do. You know, I mean, when would I get the opportunity or even get it together, you know, to organise a trip like that? Because it was from the middle of China to Istanbul, stopping in Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan and Georgia and Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, seeing these incredible things in really out-of-the-way places and learning about the Silk Road, a subject about which I knew nothing before I went out. And I really liked the way we did it, which was like, here I am, don't know anything about it, but, you know, let's go. And then I would meet people, they would tell me about it, and then I would talk to camera about what I'd understood. And that's like an interesting way of doing a travel show, rather than it being, here's Simon Sharma just telling you about it, you know.
Absolutely. So I learned a lot of stuff from it. So, for example, the Romans really liked silk but had no idea how to produce it, and the Chinese wouldn't tell them. I sort of roughly knew how silk was made, but I didn't realise
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
I had no idea how silk was made. I mean, one of the things about that show is that it told me things that you might expect me not to know. So I didn't know, for example, that the making of silk was a state secret in China until they started exporting it, because they didn't want other countries to know how to make it, so that, you know, it would be their main source of, like, you know, global income. And that's how international trade started, is when they opened borders and started trading with it. But what I didn't know beyond that, and I went to one, is how silk was made through silk farming, through silkworms. I mean, I literally had no idea it came from worms. I mean, I'd heard of silkworms, but I just thought, well, that's just the name. They probably have webs that look a bit like silk or something. You know the way animals are named sort of quite abstractly a lot of the time. Like, there'll be something called the toilet spider or whatever. And that's not actually because it's a toilet. I mean,
because it looks a bit flushed.
Yeah, it looks a bit flushed, or it looks a bit like a toilet. You know, it's got a seat and some paper next to it, but not normally named actually after what they do. But silkworms make silk.
They really do.
They really do, yeah. And so it's amazing.
They're doing it. They don't become butterfly. They would become like a moth or something, but they never get to you because they sort of boil them in their cocoon and then. Yeah,
that's not that great from the silkworm's point of view. No, they basically boil them and then they're all silky inside the thing. Yeah, don't push me on the details. It was a few years ago, and as I say, my whole approach was, I don't really know about this, but look. Yeah.
I must ask you, have you still got the wooden frog Lucky Charm?
I haven't. I wish I did. Yeah, well, I might have it, actually. I might have it, I just don't know where it is. It's at home somewhere, but my room that I do my work in is a terrible mess. And I just sort of put stuff in places. And it probably is still there somewhere. For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, which is everybody. On this trip, part of what they used to do when travellers went on the Silk Road is they used to buy a Lucky Charm and take that with them, so that bandits, they thought, probably mistakenly, wouldn't kill them or they wouldn't get ill. And I had a little frog that I bought in Xi'an in China that made a noise when
really nice noise, isn't it?
Yeah, I love the noise. Yeah, like a frog noise. I mean, that wasn't really like a frog noise, but if you watched the Silk Road, David Baddiel on the Silk Road, which you can see, I think, on the Discovery Channel because they show it over and over again.
It's on demand as well.
Is it on demand as well? Oh, well, definitely buy it. Not that I get any money for it. I don't think. I've never seen any cash for it. Well, apart from when they originally paid me for it, but no extra cash. So that's not really a good Lucky Charm. The Lucky Charm should have brought me more cash, shouldn't it?
But you didn't get attacked by bandits.
No, I didn't get attacked by bandits. That may also have been because I had a camera crew with me. Don't know. I did get to ride on a camel in the desert.
You drank its milk.
I drank a camel's milk, yeah.
What's your favourite kind of milk now you've had? Camel milk.
It actually is. Yeah. I mean, I don't have it like in Aldershot. You can't find it. But
it sells out straight away, obviously.
Gone. Like, the minute they get in a bit of camel's milk, all the people who love camel's milk like I do, yes, I just can't get there quick enough. What I need is a camel, because they're fast. But I haven't got one of those. Or I could milk it probably if I did. But no,
Take it out if I made more jokes about it.
It's a brilliant moment in that show. Is I go to a big sort of market in a place called Kashgar, where lots of people are selling lots of animals, sort of livestock market. But then a bloke who's basically Mr. Camel, like a camel kind of gangstery guy who's like seems to like do all the camel running in Kashgar, takes a bit of a shine to me and takes me sort of to this really frightening area where it looks people have mainly been shot, but it's got loads of camels in there, and milks a camel, actually straightforwardly milks a camel, and gives it to me. I think I did make a joke about, I really hope this is milk, because he was, doing a lot of milking, as it were. Not as it were, he was milking of the camel anyway. But when I tasted it, I thought, this is delicious. Yeah. I really liked it. Apparently it's very good for you as well. So yeah, camel's milk's my favourite milk.
Didn't they say it's good for your lungs or something, your respiratory system?
Yeah. I think there was a long joke I made about that, but I can't remember it now. Yes, it's all very good for you, camel milk.
It's very good.
Yeah.
In 2013, you did a show called Fame Not the Musical. Now we are back again with your current show, which is, of course, My Family.
Not the sitcom, yeah. And some people are, because someone said the other day, oh, what was it? I was doing an interview on Radio Wales, and the bloke introduced me as, of course, you're doing the show My Family, not the comedy. And I thought, I don't want it to be called that. I mean, I get how you've made that mistake, because sitcom is comedy, but I don't think anyone's going to buy tickets to a comedian show called Not the Comedy, are they?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I had to correct him.
So you spoke a bit about what the show's about and your parents and growing up and all that kind of thing. How did the rest of your family sort of respond to it when they saw it?
Well, they're fine when they saw it. They weren't fine before they saw it. So the problem was my mum died in 2014, and the show is very, very open about her sex life. And then obviously it also does include stuff about my dad's dementia. So the people who sort of were cognizant of it and sort of worried about it were my brothers, of which I have two. Ivor Baddiel, who's in comedy, he's a comedy writer, and Dan Baddiel, who is a cab driver in New York City, and he's quite hard. You know, younger brother, I'm quite frightened of him. He's like gets into fights and stuff. And he actually, I was in China at the time when I first mooted it, and I got an email from him when I was in China saying, "You're not doing it, just that." Right. And Ivor, who is a bit more nuanced, said, you know, came and met me, not in China, when I came home, and said, "Do you think this is a good idea? Shouldn't you leave it for a bit?" Blah, blah. I said, "No, I'm kind of like on the course of I just feel I need to do this show." And then, and then they both came when I was doing the show at the Chocolate Factory in London, which is where it started out. Actually, it started at the Soho Theatre, but then opened properly at the Chocolate Factory in London, and they both really loved it. And both, because the show is, you'll see, is although it is premised on being incredibly revealing about my parents and sort of negative about them, it's negative in a way that comes across as loving, strangely. It's sort of like when you see a great funeral speech and the person doing the funeral speech has decided to take the piss out of the person that's dead, but in an affectionate way. It's kind of roast in peace.
Yeah. Because I think that's nice too, because I think it sort of encapsulates a person more than just saying that they're a great person.
Yeah, that's a cool thing about what, like particularly my older brother, who was probably, I was very concerned about what he might think. I'm very close to my older brother, and he came to the show, and then at the end of the show, this was like the opening night at the Chocolate Factory. I used to do a Q&A. I don't do it anymore because I got bored of the same questions. But I used to do a Q&A at the end of the show, and all these people had their hands up, including some very important people, like the Guardian drama critic was there, and all sorts of other people. And I said, sorry, probably alienated them all a stroke, because I said, I can't answer any of your questions. I have to know, first of all, what my older brother thinks. And Ivor said, "Oh, I loved it." And they said, "I loved it because it felt like she was in the room," my mum, in other words. And that was obviously very moving, but it was also correct, because the show creates a very specific, true idea of who she was. And as such, it brings her back to life in a way that just saying, "Oh, she was a wonderful woman," won't do that.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to watching it tonight. It sounds fantastic. Now, finally, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell show, and of course your fans around the world?
Well, I consider those people the same people. I think I think my fans around the world and the people who watch the Sarah O'Connell show are one and the same people. And my message is, watch more of the Sarah O'Connell show. And if you are a television commissioner, I don't know how you can have been watching this without getting on the phone now to people and saying, why have we not commissioned this for, like, say, mainstream 9 o'clock on our channel? Yeah. Is that the message you wanted?
It's a really good message, actually. You're trying to get paid again, aren't you? I can see what this
I'm just assuming at some level you're going to pay me for this.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're not, then I take it all back.
Yeah. I'll clap enthusiastically. I'll start a standing ovation, all that kind of stuff.
Great.
Yeah. So thank you very much for watching the Sarah O'Connell show today, and for David, of course, for coming on my show.
Thank you, Sarah. I enjoyed it very much.
Please be sure to share, subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell show. Bye.
Bye.